Today we're getting into the latest Tesla news, including Tesla's cost advantage, EV competitors failing, Tesla's tough quarter, and more, so let's get into it, and a special thanks to 8 Sleep for sponsoring this video. First up today, even as more automakers are entering and expanding in the EV market, Tesla is still the world's electric vehicle leader in more ways than one. Beyond just their huge sales lead, Tesla is also an industry leader when it comes to lowering production costs, and ultimately that's the most important thing for scale. Compared to the average EV maker, Tesla has among the lowest cost per vehicle of any manufacturer. This oftentimes is something that people don't quite understand. According to a report from Bank of America, the average materials cost of a Tesla vehicle, things like, quote, metal, glass, battery packs, wheels, and tires, averages under $30,000 a vehicle. That is $10,000 cheaper than the industry average to produce an EV and $17,000 less than the average non-Tesla EV. These low materials costs are what has allowed Tesla to dominate the EV segment for so long, essentially controlling sales prices for the whole industry. Some of Tesla's main competitors like Ford and GM still have not managed to make their EVs profitable, and are still relying on gas vehicle sales to fund those EV programs. So while they introduce new EVs and compete on pricing, they're only able to do so by utilizing the profits from the other side of their business. Tesla, on the other hand, makes all of their vehicle profits strictly from the sale of EVs. Materials costs have a lot to do with why these companies have yet to offer truly affordable EV options. Until they manage to bring these costs down, Tesla is going to continue having an advantage, and that's important to keep in mind into the future. While other companies introduce new EVs, the long-term strategy is what's important, and whether or not they can catch up on Tesla's cost advantage will determine everything. Still, since Tesla is very much scaled up on vehicle production, we do see them introducing incentives to drive sales of their cars. The latest came after a question at Tesla's shareholder meeting and involves the FSD transfer. When you buy the FSD software package from Tesla, it stays with the vehicle, but Tesla has periodically offered the ability to transfer this to a new vehicle. This is something that holds customers back from upgrading cars since it's an $8,000 package, and now the offer is in place once again. Quote, the transfer period is only available for orders placed between June 24th, 2024 to August 31st, 2024 for people taking delivery of a new Model S, Model 3, Model X, or Model Y. If you're in that boat and have been waiting to upgrade, it may be a good time to purchase. They say that this is the last time they'll offer this, but they have pretty much said that every time, so it's hard to know whether this will come back after August 31st or not. Next up today, we talk a lot about how important and difficult it is for EV manufacturers to scale effectively. A lot of companies can make small runs of premium cars, but few can really get to a scale that makes them truly successful and widely available. While companies like Tesla were able to make the jump from niche luxury vehicles into making cars for the masses, not every company can be so successful. American automaker Fisker seemed promising, especially since they delivered EVs, but despite announcing a slate of upcoming EVs from an affordable compact car to a pickup truck and even a supercar, the company has been facing a lot of financial difficulties. Back in March, the company hired a bankruptcy consultant and had some failed negotiations with Nissan for a big cash injection. After all of these roadblocks and troubles, the company is officially filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in Delaware, the state in which they are incorporated. In a post on their website, the company blamed, quote, market and macroeconomic headwinds that have impacted our ability to operate efficiently as a leading cause for this situation. While the company is trying to sell its assets for between $500 million and $1 billion, they are still trying to maintain certain customer programs and to keep working under reduced operations. That is important since they have delivered vehicles. It sounds like these will be limited in scope, mainly meant to pay remaining wages and debts, as well as implementing systems to ensure the continued operation of their already sold vehicles. It's sad to see a company like this fail, especially when they had so many products slated for the relatively near future, but this is a common part of doing business. Scaling effectively is a make-or-break moment for an automaker, and we've seen it happen many times that a company couldn't handle what it takes, or market forces prevented them from getting there, or both combined. Building a successful car company is extremely challenging, especially with electric vehicles, so when a new company is able to succeed, this really goes to show just how impressive that is. With that said, as we talked about at the beginning of this video, Tesla has a major cost advantage. Their competitors still utilize gas profits to help fund their non-profitable EV programs, but one company that only makes EVs and has yet to turn a profit is Rivian. The fear there is that they may end up just like Fisker, but this week Rivian got a huge boost by partnering with VW. On X, Rivian CEO RJ Scaringe said, quote, "This is exciting. Volkswagen Group CEO Oliver Bloom and I are thrilled to announce the formation of a joint venture between our two companies. This partnership brings brings Rivian's software and zonal electronics platform to a broader market through Volkswagen Group's global reach and scale, while providing an expected $5 billion of capital to Rivian as we bring R2 and our next generation of vehicles to market. So Rivian will help VW with their software and platform struggles, and VW will help Rivian see it through to profitability. In a note to investors, one Guggenheim analyst wrote that in Q4, we see a credible path to break-even gross margins. After a recent shutdown at their Normal, Illinois plant, Rivian was able to introduce a dramatic reduction in material costs. It turns out that has resulted in a 35% material cost reduction for their vans and around the same savings on their R1 line. On top of that, they have cut out 100 steps from the battery making process, 52 pieces of equipment from the body shop, and over 500 parts from the overall design. The struggle of any new business, and especially a vehicle manufacturer, is to make their product profitable, and it looks like Rivian might be able to achieve that this year. They expect their first positive gross profit in Q4 of this year, and that trend should continue with the release of their more affordable R2 line in 2026. With VW's investment, they plan to form a joint venture for next-generation EVs, and I'm very excited to see what comes of that. I've always liked Rivian, and they make a great product, and it looks like they may have some help to see it through to profitability and actually succeed. As for Fisker, unfortunately, the future looks pretty bleak. Next up today, a quick thank you to our sponsor, who you've probably heard of at this point, 8 Sleep. Their pod can be easily added to your existing mattress to automatically cool down or warm up each side of your bed. Pod 4 Ultra can cool each side of the bed to 20 degrees Fahrenheit below room temperature, and the latest pod has 2 times the cooling power, is 40% quieter, is 10 times more comfortable, and can be controlled by just tapping on the pad itself without a phone. I've been using the Pod 4 Ultra for a bit now, and it's truly unlike anything I've experienced before. Imagine laying down in bed on a hot night, but instead of the space underneath you warming up, it actively stays cool. Body temperature is extremely important for good sleep, and this allows you to dial it in perfectly with great results. I've already seen a pretty shocking difference in the quality of my sleep, and it's one of those things that's kind of hard to explain. It's somewhat like driving a Tesla, where it's hard to fully explain, but once you experience it, it's hard for many to go back. On top of that, the Pod 4 Ultra adds the adjustable base. It automatically adjusts for comfortable reading or low-pressure sleeping positions, and will even gently lift your head a few degrees to improve airflow when snoring is detected. I'm always excited about technology that improves our lives, and 8 Sleep helps improve the foundation of everything that we do, our sleep. Head to 8sleep.com/Ryan Shaw and use code SHAW to get $350 off Pod 4 Ultra. Next up today, Tesla has talked a lot about how they are in between growth waves right now, and how that will likely manifest in lower sales for the time being. As the automaker faces off in a market that is filling with more and more compelling vehicles, then their position in the industry is becoming increasingly challenged. Q1 of this year was tough for a lot of automakers, but Tesla in particular was hit pretty hard. In those 3 months, the automaker delivered a respectable 386,810 vehicles, but that still represented a 20% drop quarter over quarter and 8.5% year over year. Now it seems like Tesla may be facing another tough quarter. Wall Street analysts are estimating that Tesla will have delivered 450,000 vehicles this quarter, a modest decrease from the 466,000 that they delivered last year during Q2. Over in Europe, Tesla is showing some signs of a really big slowdown in that market. Registration trackers are showing that the automaker is down 60,000 total deliveries from 2023 in that continent. In China, sales have been a bit more promising due to a number of incentives and reduced interest rates on purchases. Still, analysts aren't particularly hopeful that Tesla will have been able to turn around their start of the year slump for Q2. That could change, as Tesla has just implemented a bunch of end-of-quarter incentives in the US, and the long-range Model 3 has just received access once again to the full federal EV tax credit. Those things could help the company to make up some of the lost ground, but we can't know for certain until Tesla releases their sales figures. Overall, Tesla is facing somewhat of a demand problem, whether that's for them only or for the industry as a whole, with electric vehicles at these price points. In Q1, they produced 46,000 more vehicles than they delivered, and if sales are as slow as predictions are hinting, that backlog of vehicles will likely have grown. People have been spotting parking lots across the globe becoming increasingly filled with unsold Tesla vehicles, and their inventory has been growing somewhat. Besides the niche and expensive Cybertruck and the refreshed Model 3, Tesla hasn't released a new mass-market vehicle in a while. A lot of automakers have been recognizing that offering a truly affordable EV will offer huge growth opportunities, but Tesla has seemingly put their affordable model on hold, at least in the way we thought it was. Instead, they are focusing heavily on increasing autonomy for the upcoming robotaxi, and while that could be a huge success, nothing is ever truly certain. Until we see the release of the robotaxi, we could see Tesla's sales continue to struggle or at least be uncertain. Meanwhile, other automakers are moving towards releasing their own affordable cars to market very soon. But as always, we have to take those predictions with a grain of salt. A lot of times automakers come come forward with a vehicle that sounds very exciting, but it ends up delayed, and delayed much further than we'd like to see. One recent example is the Volvo EX30, which has been delayed, bringing its affordable version to market in the US. Affordable vehicles seem like a surefire way to increase sales, but autonomy could prove to be an absolute game changer for the industry as a whole, and that's more of where Tesla's headed right now. Either way, we'll have to wait and see how Tesla's Q2 shapes up, and whether the reality is really as bad as predictions have claimed. Next up today, as we've been talking about, Tesla has been positioning itself as far more than a car company for a while now. While their FSD systems rapidly improve, it is their groundbreaking AI software and hardware that is powering that development. Training and growing these AI systems requires huge investments into computing hardware and the supporting infrastructure, which is what we are seeing from countless companies across the globe, including Tesla. The automaker is currently working on a major expansion of their Texas factory, which will soon be home to a, quote, super dense, water-cooled supercomputer cluster. The building is slated to use 50,000 NVIDIA GPUs to power their advanced FSD training, alongside some of Tesla's own proprietary hardware. Tesla fans have been charting the construction of this expansion, and it seems like big progress is being made. The pipes meant to supply the advanced water cooling systems are already being installed, and the building itself is going up steadily. As of last week, huge fans were being installed into the ceiling for the ventilation and cooling systems. These AI chips use a ton of power and create a lot of heat, so it's very important that they have robust cooling systems to keep them operating. Back in May, it was reported that the data center was facing some big delays, in part due to the facility's infrastructure director being fired. Bad weather and supply issues were also creating friction during construction that has left the project somewhat behind schedule. As the demand for these kinds of data centers soars and the technological needs continue to grow more complex, companies like Tesla are finding that there is a shortage of qualified contractors that can handle these projects. It takes a lot of energy and water to run these plants, and doing that in an environmentally responsible way is extremely difficult, even with the highest expertise available. Despite these setbacks, Tesla is carrying on with construction, albeit perhaps on a slower time frame. They can't afford too many setbacks, however, as their robotaxi project will heavily rely on the advances made by these particular supercomputers. This new data center, once fully operational, is aimed to become one of the most advanced in the world. At the beginning of its operations, it is expected to start at 100 megawatts of power and cooling, but over the next 18 months, they are aiming to expand to around 500 megawatts. The data center will be running approximately 50% NVIDIA hardware and 50% custom Tesla hardware. According to Elon Musk, most of the Tesla component will be their FSD hardware 4 systems, with only some of the tech being their Dojo systems. From there, Tesla is already planning on what future additions to the supercomputer will entail. They have been working behind the scenes on the upcoming 5th edition of their FSD hardware, which this time will be referred to as AI5. That new revision will be coming in the second half of next year and will reportedly have, quote, 10 times the capability of the hardware 4 computer. The hardware that powers these AI advances is coming very quickly, and it will be exciting to see what can be accomplished using much more advanced machines. We'll have to see how construction continues to shape up and whether Tesla will be able to get this data center up and running relatively soon. Then we'll see what impact it has on the consumer-facing version of full self-driving. Next up today, as the world moves towards mass electrification, companies are recognizing the growing need for larger-scale battery production. Currently, the 4 largest battery manufacturers are the Japanese company Panasonic in 4th place, Chinese BYD in 3rd, Korean LG in 2nd, and then the Chinese company CATL is the world's leader in battery manufacturing. CATL is a dominant supplier for many of the largest EV manufacturers in the world, but other companies have been growing to take on more of the industry. As America and Europe take a more hardline stance on imported Chinese tech, with huge tariffs on EVs and battery components, other countries are stepping up to fill that void. Many South Korean battery companies have been expanding massively to meet the growing demand for EV battery production around the world. LG has announced that later this year, they will begin producing 4680 battery cells out of their Korean factory, making them the first company outside of Tesla itself that mass produces these cells. It will eventually be able to produce nearly 9 gigawatt hours of energy storage per year, or enough to power 110,000 vehicles per year. Meanwhile, in the United States, LG is currently building a dedicated cylindrical battery plant that is planned to produce 36 gigawatt hours per year starting in 2026. Those batteries are expected to supply Tesla and other companies' vehicles, making them more affordable to produce and eligible for the federal EV tax credit. Other Korean companies have been investing very heavily into both battery production and in building the pipeline to supply the production. Samsung is going to begin mass cylindrical battery production this year and are already deep in negotiations with automakers to supply them. Other companies are investing heavily into increasing supply for the nickel-plated steel that is used to make the batteries, and the manufacturers of the battery cans are expanding heavily as well. Making batteries is a huge business, and as electric vehicles continue to grow in the market, companies need to be ready to supply that increasingly scaled production. Otherwise, we'll see a bunch of cool prototypes or very low volume vehicles. Beyond just electric vehicles, the shift towards renewable energy is prompting huge growth in stationary battery sites. In Arizona, for example, Recurrent Energy has just received $513 million in financing to build a large-scale energy storage system for the region. The project is anticipated to be finished by Q2 of 2025, where its 1,200 megawatt-hour storage systems will be able to power 244,000 homes per day for 4 hours with renewable energy. Arizona is a very sunny state, and this will allow them to more efficiently redistribute solar energy to be used during off hours. Countless energy storage projects like these are being established across the globe, and it goes to show how much battery production will need to grow in order to electrify our society and shift towards renewable energy. Last up today is some updates from other automakers. As more automakers race towards getting affordable EVs to market, Kia has just made an announcement that makes their latest option even more exciting. Kia is officially planning on building the North American version of their $30,000 EV3 out of their plant in Mexico, thereby potentially giving it access to the US EV tax credit. The Kia EV3 recently started sales in Korea, where it sells for an equivalent of about $30,700. That's a very compelling price for an electric vehicle, and if we assume a comparable starting price in the US, it could stand to do well in this market. Having access to the federal EV tax credit, in addition, would bring this car down into a very affordable price range. Kia's factory in Mexico reportedly has capacity for around 400,000 units to be produced per year, and the automaker is aiming to make 110,000 EV3 units annually. The automaker is clearly betting big on the mainstream success of the EV3, and if they can keep prices down and gain access to that credit, then it could do extremely well. If they keep the base price between $30,000 and $35,000, then the tax credit could bring it anywhere between $22,500 to $27,500. That's all the latest Tesla news for today, so in the meantime, if you want to see everything you'll want to know for your Tesla delivery day, you can check out that video linked up here or in the description below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.